Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is Jon Patton. Hello, welcome. It's nice to see you here again. Today, boys and girls, we're going to do something that has been requested by a lot of you. And I'm sitting down with the president of the National Association for Gun Rights, NAGR, Dudley Brown. Dudley, how are you today?
Well, better than I deserve, to borrow a Dave Ramsey saying. It's actually cloudy in Colorado today, which does not happen in August. So
I will actually be in Colorado in 2 weekends. I will be in your neighborhood. It'll be great. I'm excited.
Have to let me know if you want to come by. Love to have you.
We need to go blow some stuff up together. So today, guys, the point of this is to kind of publicly share some information with you guys. I recently made a post on my Instagram, and if you're not following us there, please go do that. The Gun Collective on Instagram. I made a post when I got an email from their group, and the post was, "What are you doing with all this money?" It was accusatory, and this is something that I took issue with because I don't understand and didn't understand where this fundraising was going, because with a lot of groups, you see the rah-rah kind of stuff, and I wasn't seeing that from NAGR. So what we did, I got in touch with Dudley, and instead of being a douche on social media, I decided, let's have a conversation. Let's share this information with the TGC audience, and let's get it out there, right? That's fair?
I think it's fair.
I think
but tell them the truth, though.
Oh, boy.
You actually it wasn't you. It was someone else who said, hey, wait a minute. I know these guys.
It was Mr. Guns and Gear. It was Eric from Iraq Vet. It was a couple people reached out to me, said, hey, you should probably reach out. So we got in contact, and here we are today breaking it down. So can you, from a very, very high level, tell the people that are listening, watching, etc., what NAGR does?
Yeah. I mean, the joke now that I use on the speaking circuit is I say, we do what you think the NRA does.
Okay.
To gun people, I say, we do what you wish the NRA did.
Okay.
And we do it with a lot less money than they have, and a lot less staff. And but we've been doing it for a long time. So this is not something, quotes, new.
Right.
I will confess, though, John, the problem we have is we are not good braggers. That is all on us. We're not really good about branding. We're not great. We're not really good at beating our chest and saying we did that.
Sure.
And
that's challenging.
Now, when we've done it in the past, at times we say things and then we have to walk it back a little bit or apologize. You know, I made a comment many years ago in Colorado on Students for Concealed Carry issue, and we won a case, and then or not a case, a university, and backed them off, and then the Colorado Supreme Court ruled properly, and the Students for Concealed Carry won, and I said, we won, we did this, and they got ticked because they were acting as if I did it all or my organizations did it all, and I kind of had to apologize, walk it back, and I know a bunch of those guys now, and did. I said, no, I'll explain what we did, but this is what we did, and we played a significant role, and so it's a difficult thing to do, is to brag about yourself. Now I'll do it about the staff here and the people who work at NAGR and the National Foundation for Gun Rights, which is our 501c3. We have currently about between 70 and 75 full-time staff members who do everything from the political side and the lobbying side to the marketing side, our video team here, public relations. Start getting into all the admin that you need to do for health insurance, and accounting and
fun stuff,
mail opening, and things that most people don't think about for a nonprofit. It was easy when it's one person, but when you get 70 some people, you actually have to follow the rules. So, but these are all, we have a team of people they're all smarter than me. They're all passionate. They're all they care.
Sure.
And, they often get jobs offers for making more money, and they stay here because they're like, but I love getting up in the morning and, kicking politicians. And I love doing the things and making a difference. Many of them are gun people. I think I've told you this, we have a balance of people who are kind of the Christian right world, homeschooling, tend to be very pro-life. They tend to be just what you would normally think of as the Christian right. And then you have the Rand Paul libertarian leaning people. And then a lot of us mix together. And frankly, they kind of fit together well, because those are the two sides of the conservative movement in America. And that's what our staff looks like. And so it makes for very interesting parties and get-togethers. We're in Northern Colorado as our main headquarters. We have offices around the country, including DC, but we're in craft beer center of America. That's what I think, because I'm a craft beer nerd, and we're very it's just a diverse group of people, of men and women, but they're young. They're very young. One of the studio guys here. Well, how old are you, Hunter?
21.
He's 21.
21.
Yeah. My son.
So you've got it kind of all over the map in terms of the staff.
Yeah.
Let's try and dive into, for the people that are listening, let's try and dive into, like, what would you say in like an elevator pitch NAGR does with the funding? Because 9 times out of 10, the contact that folks get is an email asking for money. What do you think they would want to know that you're doing? Like, you're turning those dollars into what?
Okay. Well, and I'll make this case. Usually they're getting a pitch for what's happening politically and what they can do, what petitions, what phone calls they can make.
Sure.
Where we think the threats are, where we think we can advance our rights. And then there's a pitch for money in there. And I, anything you do, and anybody in their life, if you do value it and it is important to you, you probably need some resources to do it. There are some people who can do things like this for free. They can spend their whole lives working for free. Most people don't have that luxury. They're not trust fund kids. And so they have to pay bills. You have to pay bills with sponsors. Great. You bring content that is valuable. And so you've got to raise that money. Ours is the same way. And much like a church, you pass the plate. Give people the opportunity to get involved, even if it's $5, $10, as what we call a chip in. That's a kind of buy into activism, meaning when they actually donate, they tend to be more committed. What do we do with that money? The two big things I brag on with the organization. Number one is we count votes, and we don't just talk in the media. We actually count votes in legislative bodies to kill bad legislation or pass good, which is much more difficult. We are the only real group to spend real money in 2013 against the Toomey Manchin Gun Control Act. And that was Barack Obama's big push. And we spent more than all other gun groups combined. And that's a filing you must make with the federal government if you lobby Congress. We've spent more in that big, massive battle, which in my 29 years of being a gun lobbyist, that's really the biggest fight since the assault weapons ban and the Brady Act.
Wow.
And there's a USA Today article that says we spent more than all other gun groups combined, including the NRA, on that. And was stopped all these nasty gun controls that were trying to be pushed, not only by the Democrats, but by Republicans. Pat Toomey, who's finally retiring, good riddance, was one of the sponsors. So spending money to oppose bad legislation and activate people. And I'm really proud of what we did in 2013. Now, is to some people, the younger folks, certainly, that's almost, that's ancient history, right?
Honestly, when it comes to the fight for gun rights, that feels like a very, very long time ago to me. That feels like that was around the time I got started in the firearms industry. Around that time, it was a little bit before, but around that time is when I was getting started. So it feels like a very long time ago.
Well, the news flash is that when that fight happened, there were other groups were doing quite the opposite. They were actually trying to pass it. They were negotiating deals. They were what we call fashioning the chains that bind us, and trying to cut deals. Now that's and of course, I think gun owners should hold people accountable, organizations accountable when they start doing harm like that. I think that's the real harm is giving cover, bipartisan efforts to pass gun control. And when you're doing that, frankly, you need to stop and get out of the business.
So I think people do that, is particularly with the NRA. I think people have gotten wise to that nonsense that they have done in the past. I don't know that there's enough of the communication and understanding in terms of that happening now for any other groups. If it is happening, I have no idea. Okay. So let's rewind a little bit.
Well, let me add to that, though.
Okay.
That didn't used to be the case, John. It wasn't the case. When I first started lobbying guns in 1993, if you said anything bad about the NRA, man, they pushed you off in a corner and no one had ever talked to you. Sean Hannity, I was on his show, I think 9 times when he was Hannity and Combs. And man, when I said something critical about the NRA, I never got a phone call back. I never appeared on his channel. He wouldn't return my texts.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. So our second big item, though, that I want to bring up is when people say, where does the money going? And that is, our organization has been on the leading edge of passing constitutional carry, no permit needed, open or concealed carry, all around the country. And we started in 2011 as NAGR did, although that's all I've been doing almost my entire career, which is now more than half my life. And in Colorado, we used to call it the Vermont law. And man, when you ran those amendments, boy, people looked at you like you're a nut job. That'll never happen. Vermont's the only state. And then it happened in Alaska. And then it happened in Arizona. Not with my help, not with our organization's help, but and then it happened in Wyoming. And that was NAGR and working with Wyoming gun owners. And since then, we've been involved to a greater or lesser degree in every state pretty much that's passed it, and including Texas, which was the heavy lift in 2021. And that took us 8 years and what we think was $2 million of pressure against politicians. You'd think, oh, it happened easy in Texas, right? Texas is so red. It's where all the gun people are. I'm like, no, you have no clue. In a Republican supermajority legislature, the Good Old Boy Network was killing it left and right. The Texas State Rifle and Pistol Association, those compromisers were cutting deals for politicians, and it was nasty. Now, I will admit, I say things about other groups or people in politics who are supposed to be on our side, and I'll just flat out say it. And
I honestly, I appreciate that about you. When we got on the phone, you shared some things with me, and I appreciate open communication, and I wish there was more of it from people in your position.
Well, and I'll back it up with facts and say, here's what we know. And I'll show people, but that's not a popular thing to do against the NRA. And really until 2019, when their corruption, all the alleged corruption by LaPierre and stuff became public, which anybody who was paying any attention knew that for decades. And if they didn't know that, they're either one, not paying attention, two, incompetent, or three, in on it. One of the three, maybe all one or two or three of all three of those. So, and I honestly, when somebody says, "Oh, I got a problem with the NRA, they're sorry corrupt," I'm like, that's actually kind of my least reasons to dislike them. I mean, it's one of them, but it is cutting deals that enable gun control to pass. That is what infuriates me as a gun owner. The Brady bill itself is the cornerstone of all gun control. John, you know that. I bet you're an FFL, right?
I am.
Okay. And what do you use if you want to pass gun control? You use the NICS system or your state level point of contact, and or both. And so what did they do to stop it? Actually, they're the ones that passed it.
Yeah,
it was Wayne LaPierre going in Bob Dole's office and saying, look, they're going to get it someday. So we might as well pass it. We'll call it InstaCheck. We're not going to call it the Brady system. Although I'm old enough to remember who that was. Sarah Brady was a raving witch. And
tell me how you really feel.
yeah, I mean, Hinckley should have shot at her. Sorry, did I say that? So I shouldn't say bad things about someone who's dead. But
no, that's usually not well accepted. However, okay. It is mildly comical.
So, but when you say those kind of critical things against a monster like the NRA with hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't get a lot of invites to cocktail parties in the firearms industry. You know what? That's okay. I'll survive. And so, I think what you're getting though is we went and connected with a lot of people in the industry in the last couple of years and brought them out and said, look, get face to face, look somebody in the eye, and come out shooting with me, fine. But look at our operation. You think this looks like a scam? These are people busting their butt to try and pass constitutional carry and work very diligently on every issue they can in the firearms world. And I make no apologies for raising money for that group.
Sure.
Tough job to do, but
I want to try and understand, forgive my lack of understanding with lobbying.
Yeah.
Because I never pretend to understand where funds go in that instance, because to me, from an outside perspective, it seems like person A and person B have a conversation. Where does the money change hands? So if you're trying to talk to, a senator, a congressman, whatever it is, where are you actually is the money, the lobbying dollars, are they going into buying meals, and what is the actual spend going to in those instances? Help me understand.
Let me give you a better idea. If you're an insurance lobbyist and you lobby for very non-controversial issues, and you're changing how a insurance co-payment requirement is billed, or some very small regulatory change, yeah, of course, a lot of that is just face to face. Here's an idea, let's go out and do it. That's not what we do. Everything we do is very controversial, right? I mean, repealing all regulation on suppressors, not Hearing Protection Act, the Shush Act by Senator Mike Lee. That bill would turn suppressors into nothing.
It'd be amazing.
Same thing as a bipod. So no 4473, nothing. You'd have them in a barrel next to the cash register at the range, and probably be 3D printed, and you just throw them on your gun. You buy it by the dozen. When they get dirty, you throw them away. But that's pretty controversial. Repealing the NFA, that's pretty controversial. Repealing Brady, you name it, and opposing assault weapons ban. Okay, so controversial issues, there are only really a few ways to do it. Okay, but lobbying itself, and I've lobbied, I think, in 30 states and Congress. I'm currently a federal lobbyist, registered federal lobbyist in DC. I don't dress up in a nice suit and go on K Street in Washington, DC, and go buy them steak dinners and, $70 bourbon shots, at the Chop House. Not that I don't want to do that. That sounds fun. But I don't want to buy it for dirtbags who are going to vote against me. Frankly, what we do is we focus the attention of our members on a politician and apply the heat. And so
when you say apply the heat, what does that mean to you?
Meaning have them contact them at the right time, and contact their constituent or someone who could be their future constituent. member of U.S. Congress in the House, they all dream about being a senator, all of them, and all senators dream about being president. So there is a natural, like, elevated constituency that they'll respond to. But a politician is only really responsive to one thing and one thing only, and that is getting reelected or not making the next office, or losing their office. Those are the kind of things that are extremely powerful in politics. And that's why I say, when someone says, hey, I want to go lobby my state legislature, and I'm going to go down to the state capitol, I'm going to talk to them all, and they were all really nice to me. Well, of course they are. They're going to be nice to you and pet you on the head, because they don't want the pressure. They just want one person, so it's nice and private. And it's when you go outside of that and start involving their constituents and saying, look, this guy's probably going to vote against your rights unless you put pressure on him. Or this person, let's say Lindsey Graham, Mitt Romney, these people are going to vote against your rights, or did vote against your rights. Don't forget that in the next election. That is when they get really upset. And
so what costs money in that equation, though? Because that all sounds really vague. That all, like, I don't mean to, like, I'm not, I don't want to.
Questions. They're all great questions.
That sounds vague and weird.
I mean, yeah, of course you got to fly out to DC, and you got to have people on the Hill, and you got to pay salaries to do that. But the big expense is activating people. And so what are you going to send them a piece of mail? You know how expensive mail is?
I do.
I
do. It's very expensive.
We send out millions of pieces of mail a year, activating people. You want to send out, you want to run TV ads? We do that. Especially when it counts, close to an election.
Right.
You want to run, you want to boost social media into an area. It used to be easy, right? Facebook used to allow. We have 4.5 million followers on Facebook. But that and a $5 bill, you get a cup of Starbucks coffee, because it doesn't do anything unless you pay now for Facebook. You got to pay to talk to the same people. So social media is someplace where we put lots of money in to activate people, to put the pressure on politicians to vote against bad bills.
Okay.
That's millions. That costs millions of dollars. I will say, and this is a dirty little secret, but it doesn't really matter anymore. In the Toomey Mansion fight, when I said we were spending all that money, one of the things we were spending on was Facebook ads. We were spending $30,000 a day.
Wow.
To oppose Toomey Mansion.
Wow.
On Facebook ads.
Wow.
Yes.
See that, I'll tell you right now, that's the kind of stuff that people want to know about when it comes to this sort of the fight for the Second Amendment. People want to know, we're putting dollars into this fight. They want to know.
Well, and I wish it didn't cost money, but if it didn't cost money, would it? Yeah. And the important part, John, is you not only do it when it counts, because it, doesn't really matter if you do it before a bill's even going to be heard, or on markup, or frankly, you put the pressure on politicians who aren't going to change their mind. I mean, it's not bad to do that, but really there are some senators or some members of the House who are in play, and that's it. I mean, a lot of them aren't in play. And so putting pressure on them is a waste of time. I live in northern Colorado. My member of Congress is Joe Neguse. Joe Neguse is a card-carrying Marxist. He's never going to vote for anything pro-gun. The only reason to put pressure on him is just to keep activists like active and understanding that that's what you do. I feel like a moral compulsion to contact his office, just like any other activist, and tell him, please vote against 1808. But he was never voting against HR 1808. And so, but our U.S. senators were in a purple state, trending blue, and probably not going to vote against their constituency on it. But they also know it can create them a lot of trouble. And so that's our job, is to create a lot of political pain by having angry voters. And angry voters meaning, how dare you vote against my rights? Here's the worst part about it is, and John, I think this is where the cynicism comes in. A lot of activists think, oh, they're so conditioned to hearing, hey, don't worry, I'm the lobbyist for this group. I got it handled.
Right.
And whenever you hear that, you're being screwed. There's just no other way to put it. Yet they are one, either cutting a deal or they're idiots. So again, sometimes both. And so stay away from people who just say, look, we got it handled. Don't worry. You don't need to worry about this.
From in that same regard, one of the things that I preach in all of the political stuff that we talk about is that there is not one single group that will save the Second Amendment. It has never been that way, and it will never be that way. And I encourage people to always do whatever they can personally at a local level, state level, et cetera, and up to a federal level, because of claims like that being sort of luring people into a false sense of security. And that's just never been the case. Anybody that says they got it, like you said, is full of shit.
Well, hold them accountable, hold us accountable. I'll make more mistakes.
We're human.
Almost 30 years, trust me, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure I'm going to make a lot more. I joke about it that I've set the record for the most number of mistakes by a gun lobbyist, because frankly, there's probably nobody who's been doing this long, except maybe LaPierre and a few other people in the NRA. And I've made plenty of mistakes, and I'm sure I will again. Wyoming's constitutional carry law was my mistake. It was residents only. It was a residents only bill. We spent a lot of money, especially back when we couldn't afford it. We didn't have the money back in 2011 to pass that bill, and we missed that. We missed that it was residents only, and it had to be fixed by the local group up there. Great, but that was a mistake, and I don't mind owning that. I'm sure I'll make more. But
I genuinely respect you even publicly admitting that was a mistake, because a lot of folks in the gun community on the internet would love to roast somebody for missing something like that. And it's good to hear you say, look, I screwed up here. I'm luckily we ended up okay, but it's good to hear that. So I heard when I reached out to our Facebook group called Gundamentalists about interviewing you, somebody brought up something that I don't understand because I didn't study it. I don't know exactly what happened. It was a constitutional carry issue in Nebraska. I don't remember what they said was the exact issue. Can you speak to that? They said that it was something that you had shot down, and I don't know what's true.
Let me now. Of course, I'm not the one going to Nebraska to lobby on it, and I have staff who do that. There's no way I could keep track of all of it.
No.
But of course, I field a lot of the phone calls on what happened, and we have plenty of meetings talking about what's going on. What happened was first of all, Nebraska is a unicameral legislature. It's a state that with all hat, no cattle. They claim they've got tons of hunters, but the Republicans there have never really had to vote pro-gun. They get handed NRA A ratings like after dinner mints. They're all a part of the Sportsman's Caucus. Isn't that nice? But they're lagging behind in a very red state to pass constitutional carry. And we had the chance. And what happened was the city of Omaha had some gun control that was municipal ordinances. And so the Republicans who controlled the committees said, the only way we're willing to let constitutional carry pass is if we put the Omaha amendment inside the bill. And in other words, put the gun control inside of the constitutional carry bill. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I know how I feel about that. That is when politicians try to do that, I get kind of pissed. And so should you. I mean, especially in a state like that.
It seems a bit strange to, I don't know, give that up.
placate
Yeah, placate.
placate
That's the
a
right word.
city's
Right.
gun control. And I know if I were a legislator, and the legislators we support, none of them would ever vote to amend a good, clean constitutional carry bill and put gun control and codify it, not in a city ordinance, which can be overturned, right? Which
Right.
is what we're working on right now, given the Bruin decision. But you're codifying it into state law. In fact, I had a well-known researcher who's I won't mention his name, but he called me. He's a good guy, but he was there in Nebraska, and he kept trying to convince me to back off of the support or opposition to this Omaha amendment. And I was like, dude, you don't really understand the legislative process, and he doesn't. So so we count the votes and we go, oh, really? We can't pass that? Well, we can't pass a clean bill. Double dog dare you, and we'll see you after the next election. That's the way to treat politicians, is put them in the spot and say, all right, we'll see. Go ahead and do what you want, but we're going to tell gun owners what you did. It's not going to be a secret. And so I forget the names of the senators. If I remembered them, I would plop them out to you right here and now. The state senators in Nebraska who did this, because I love to call those asshats out. But yeah, that's what happened, and we wouldn't buy it. So yeah, we're going to go through a round of basically elections in Nebraska, and we're going to make some of them pay, hang some coyotes' hides on the barn door, and we'll take another run at it, and we'll see whether it happens. That's what we had to do in Texas. And remember, Texas is a very big, very expensive state, not just geographically, it's population-wise, it's a massive state.
Right.
And that state legislature, we had to threaten lawsuits with two speakers of the House, Republican speakers of the House, both of whom quit.
Wow.
And there's a long story behind that. Them trying to get one of our state lobbyists arrested there in Texas, and I don't know, that was probably 2019, I think. And a lot of that is just, we're not going away. We're going to go hold you accountable in the next election, and then we'll keep coming back. And we're not going to go until we pass this. And we got it done. Frankly, they just get tired of fighting. Remember, politicians, they don't want to actually have a real election. They want to go golfing during primary season and chasing skirt and having fun. They don't actually want to have a primary election and then a general election. Well, if you screw with us on constitutional carry and you're in a really solid state and your district's solid, you're going to have problems. We're going to recruit candidates against you. And at some point, they just give up. And that's what happened in Texas. I believe that's what's going to happen in Nebraska.
I guess time will tell on that. So that kind of brings me to another topic that came up. And that is your stance on the idea of incremental improvements to current gun laws versus to a absolutism. Do you feel that there is room for, sort of chiseling away, using a pick and slowly increasing or taking back our rights versus just going, no, shall not, that is it, there is no room otherwise? Where are you at on that?
Well, I guess it depends on the state or we talk about state or Congress or something. Remember this, defeating legislation is much easier than passing. Okay. I don't know if you've ever gotten that concept, but just a generic state legislature, they usually have a committee structure. In the committee's structure, every committee, sometimes they'll go to 4 or 5 committees in each chamber, a subcommittee, and then into the full committee. And those committees, each time you get a chance to kill it in that committee. And it's like obstacles to pass this, and then they got to pass this. And every time you get a chance to shoot at it and defeat it. Okay. Well,
it's like it pops up between the trees, right?
Yeah. And you got an opportunity. Well, if you lose once anywhere in that process, game over. Right. So by and large, and I know I'm speaking in general terms, but that's kind of the way it is in most state legislatures. Well, Passing a bill is the opposite. It's like it's trying to navigate your pet buck through the woods of Michigan right when the day of opening day. You
Sure.
want to tie a rope around their neck, you better be running fast, and it's not easy. And so, so the cons, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about like defensively, we don't think you actually gain and keep the American gun owner in the fight if you give the gun grabbers half of what they're trying to steal. So that's like asking me, Dudley, would you buy off on half a loaf of gun control? And no. I mean, no. Here's a great example. Our analogy is somebody comes to steal your ranch, and they walk in and try to steal your ranch. What are you going to say? Hell no. Point a gun at them. But if they come to your ranch and say, I want your whole ranch, and you go, well, here's half. It's kind of tough to go to the sheriff and say, they stole my ranch. He goes, look, your signature's on the dotted line. You gave him half the ranch. Sorry, dude. There was no theft going on. And I feel that way about the Brady bill, obviously. And the state legislatures, the fingerprints of many in the gun community is all over most of the gun controls that pass. And again, our one of my rules is first do no harm. Like a doctor, don't go out and do something harmful. As far as advancing, it's a little bit different, but I do use this phrase that decay comes in bits and pieces, but progress comes in leaps and bounds. Usually you're going to get constitutional carry just bam, and it's going to be a pretty big victory. As I explained there with Texas, that was a pretty doggone massive leap forward on firearms rights in Texas. It wasn't some little bit and piece. Right now, you look in state of Florida, we're trying to pass constitutional carry there. It was our staff. It was Matt Collins, who's now a former staff. He just left to go work for the airlines. He's a pilot. And Matt went, and he's the one who went to the governor's mansion and got Ron DeSantis, who's a great vote. He was a great vote in the U.S. House, got him on film saying he supported constitutional carry. And that started the ball rolling downhill. And then our sponsor, Anthony Sabatini, who's now running for Congress, he was pushing the bill. We probably get it next year. But guess what the politicians try to do? They try to buy you off with a half of what you want. So they tried to pass a license to carry openly.
What does that mean?
Exactly, John. It should make you do a Bart Simpson go, don't, because they do it in politics.
That was a really good Simpsons sound bite. I like that.
I like that. I got a few shticks. They basically try to get people to buy off on it. Look, in Utah, when we pushed for constitutional carry many years ago, the Republicans, quotes, gun people in Utah agreed to passing constitutional carry for guns that are not loaded. I'm not kidding you. Guns that are not loaded. And they bought off on
I don't understand why any politician thinks that is an acceptable thing to put in a bill. Like there's this weird thing that, and I don't quite understand it. I think it's because people are unwilling to face reality. This whole argument of guns were, these are weapons of war. No shit. I want those guns that are made for war so that I can protect myself from tyranny. And I think there's this weird thing where people refuse to admit that on grand scale in large public forums for some reason, because others are scared of it. Yeah. And to pretend that a gun is anything more than a chunk of metal when it is not loaded, that's a foreign concept to me. It's kind of useless.
For a politician, though, it was a great way for them to do nothing but give cover with the firearms community. And I probably I have a different scale for politicians who are from really great districts, but they do that kind of stuff. versus a politician, for instance, who's in a tough district but stands firm,
Sure.
or in a great district and they're a hero. Thomas Massey's by far the best member of the U.S. Congress on guns. He's from Kentucky. He's got 2 degrees from MIT. He paid his way through college at MIT by buying and selling transferable Uzis. He has a lot of machine guns on his hauler in northeastern Kentucky. He knows guns. He's chairman of the Second Amendment Caucus. We actually asked him to restart it when he first got elected, and he's just a rock star on the issue. He gets it all. And you saw from the 1808 discussions, Judiciary Committee, he was the one asking the right questions, especially on the whole ridiculous bump stocks claim versus
the brace bump stock.
Yeah, and you can be a technocrat and a gun person and go and educate the Democrat members of the committee and show them why that was ridiculous. Okay, that's what Dave Kopel does. If you know the name, Dave Kopel's a very smart guy who's politically knows less about legislative process than I know about nuclear power generation. But Dave literally is a technocrat who goes and shows politicians how to pass gun control. He did it in Colorado on the magazine ban back in 2013. We're about ready to release some evidence on that and to ruin his career on that because he's the one that showed the Dems how to fix the bill.
That's a shame.
But that's the kind of crap you could show the sponsor of HR 1808 why he was wrong. Frankly, I just rather do what Massey did and show how the American public how ridiculous this guy is, and did. And you're not going to change their mind by facts. I mean, they're not running 1808 because of facts. They're running it because it's great for their base. They know it's going to be overturned by Bruin if it actually made it through the Senate. They know it, but it's good for their base. And they're feeding red meat to those guys and those, the 64 genders. And
it's kind of gross that politicians will allow things just to sort of activate their base. I think that's disgusting that they will allow bills through just to look better. I mean, we've known these things happen. Like it's sort of that accepted thing with politicians. Like, oh, they're just doing it so they get reelected. I find that to be kind of gross. I find that really, really weird and gross.
Yeah, I think that's weird too. But
so
I mean, our side does it too. So
yeah, I don't care. I find myself oftentimes. I don't side with Republican or Democrat. I side with freedom. That's kind of where I lie, personally. I want to try and, we don't have a ton of time with you today. I know you're super busy and I do appreciate you coming on. I want to try and understand, so you spend a lot of your, the money that you guys generate on, going after constitutional carry, which is great. We love that. You spend a lot of money pushing on politicians. That's great. We love that. Would you say that there are other organizations out there that are doing, for lack of a better term, the Lord's work, so to speak, when it comes to the Second Amendment? Do you think there are other orgs that are right there? You can count on them to be in the trenches next to you?
Well, I'm a life member of Gun Owners of America. They're good friends of mine. I always have been. Larry Pratt, who's really stepped down running the organization, is a long time friend of mine. Eric Pratt's a friend. Many of the staff there, John Valeco, they're great friends. And rarely are we ever on the different page.
That's great.
And yeah, it's great. I mean, the lines of communication are always open. We text each other regularly. But, there are, if I could count the number of pro-gun rights groups in America we work with and we've connected with, we think do the right thing, I'd run out of, I'll be kind and just say one finger, I think, at least on the national side. Yeah, there are a lot of state level groups who, it's tough on a state level. That's where I cut my teeth with Rocky Mountain Gunners here in Colorado. It's this tough state with the demographics, but we've tried to hold the line and done our very best to hold the line and with the state legislature, and it's just tough. But I make no qualms about it that our role is to fight, and I think we fight smarter than others, but there are others who try different strategies. I'm not going to try and convince my next door neighbor who's a leftist and doesn't like guns. If they don't want to, I could talk to them, but there's almost no way to convince those people. I mean, yes, you can take them shooting. Doesn't change how they vote. So in the long run, that's all that really matters is how do they vote? They're going to vote for the same leftist politicians who pander to the gun control agenda. So we largely ignore that, trying to change people's minds as an organization.
Okay.
It just doesn't make any political sense to me. And we spell that out on our website in our strategy. In fact, we teach strategy classes all around the country. And because we just don't think it's a great strategy. Who makes laws? Policymakers. That's the pressure you need to put on. Those are the people you need to change in an election. That's why we formed the first ever gun-only super PAC, Gun Rights America. It's our super PAC that can go out and say, don't vote for this SOB, vote for this one. And because this politician voted against you. Liz Cheney, which that primary is today in Wyoming. Liz Cheney voted against your rights, but don't vote for her. Now that her opponent isn't that great. She's okay. She's not that great. She didn't make our bar to endorse her. So we didn't say to vote for her, but we said, don't vote for Liz Cheney. And that's just to be intellectually honest. We don't want to lie to people. I won't tell gun owners that Donald Trump was a great president on guns. He wasn't. He was terrible, and trending worse. And so we didn't endorse him. Why would we ever endorse somebody who voted wrong? Does it mean we endorsed Joe Biden? Of course we didn't. And we made it very clear that Joe Biden's terrible. But we have to be honest to gun owners. They've been getting smoke blown up their skirt for a very long time. And we just don't want to do that. Lawsuits. I think you probably wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a very, from an activist standpoint or a gun enthusiast standpoint, the amount of lawsuits that some groups are cranking out is astronomical. Where do you guys lie on those sorts of things?
Yeah, we've been involved in legal fights for a very long time. We don't think it's the be all end all, at least until we got Bruen.
Okay.
And now I was quoted in the McDonald decision, and our brief was quoted by Justice Alito in the majority opinion. And I go into details on that. But Heller and McDonald, they're great, but they really didn't do what we wanted them to do. They really haven't served as any kind of tool to dismantle gun control. Now, though, they are supplements very much so to the Bruen decision. And we're seeing already victories. I believe we have the first lawsuit that's used in federal court that's used the Bruen decision and actually has at least a preliminary decision on the temporary restraining order we filed against municipality here in Colorado. We're also filed against the town of Superior, and an Obama appointed judge ruled that in our favor in temporary restraining orders. Let me be clear. These are the kind of things you put on potential rapists. We filed a temporary restraining order against the city of Superior and the sheriff, and the judge ruled in our favor, and saying that the reason that judge is ruling in our favor is because the Bruen decision gave him no choice. We also filed and reopened the Colorado magazine ban case, which we filed when it first was implemented in Colorado in 2013. That's a greater than 15 round magazine ban. That ban survived our $300,000, 5-year fight all the way up into the Colorado Supreme Court, but it was based in state court, based on the Colorado Constitution. Article 2, Section 13 is a great phrase. If you read it through it's a great constitutional protection. Unfortunately, the judges are so bad, and even at that level in Colorado that they ruled against us. However, Bruin breathed new life into it, and for that matter, we're going to have a temple erected to Justice Clarence Thomas on our range because he is the goat, man, and that and so now we're reopening it on a federal level in federal court and filing against the state based on the Bruin decision, and
That's fantastic.
Our hope is we can overturn the Colorado magazine ban. That probably ends up happening either late this year or next year. And if we for whatever reason that particular judge that we got dealt in that case rules against us, of course, we're going to appeal it into the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. So we probably get a circuit split somewhere in America based on magazine bans, maybe even assault weapons bans. But all of our attorneys tell us there's no way they're going to survive this, given the new rules that are really written on the means testing for these kind of gun control laws. So we're excited about it, and there are other groups doing it. Great. There are other groups that we don't really know. The Firearms Policy Coalition, I really don't know them. If you're watching this, pick up the phone and call me, Brandon Combs. Never talked to you. My phone's always willing to talk to anybody who's in the fight. And if we can join forces and say, hey, yeah, we'll help, sure. or you can help us. Some cases, we're always willing to. We love unity. We're just not going to have any unity on cutting deals with politicians.
Hey, that right there is a big deal, and I really do appreciate that perspective. There is one more thing that I want to ask you before we wrap up today. Is there hope? Is there hope, legitimate hope, for New York, New Jersey, and California?
Well, I'm going to actually lump Colorado in with that.
All right.
Because I live in a state, I love this state. I live in the northern part of Colorado, and I refuse to move to Northern Virginia, even though that's where, Beltway groups are based. And we're certainly not a Beltway group. I don't want to move, but our state has been circling the drain. I think everybody in California knows their state has not only circled the drain, it's out in the leach field. And so, in fact, many of those people who got disgusted with California moved to Colorado.
Yeah, and Texas.
And then they brought their policies and voted for the same politicians once they moved. Don't understand that.
It's funny how that works.
And they literally have brought this back on themselves again. And so I think the Bruin decision does kind of bring new life into the Second Amendment fight. Because I used to give a speech. Part of my speech was always the Second Amendment isn't doing anything. It's a piece of paper in a museum. It's beautiful. Go see it. It's in National Archives in Washington, D.C. It's surrounded by a city that has no Second Amendment rights, but it's there. You can see the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They're wonderful, but it's not doing anything until now. And now it's not going to do anything by itself. We have to use it and use the Bruin decision, which Clarence Thomas said, basically the balancing test has already been done. That was done when we wrote the Bill of Rights. And so let's go out and use it. And right. That doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of winning elections. Make politicians scared of losing races again. I know many on our side will go and resort to term limits and all kinds of dumb trick plays that make no sense. Make them lose elections. Go beat them. Go knock out your local state representative, your state senator. If you don't live in a district that has semi-balanced or at least winnable elections in a primary or in a general, either move or adopt another district next door that actually is winnable, and go make politicians pay for bad votes. If you don't hold them accountable, you're the one to blame, not the politician. I mean, we're only going to be the ones to hold them accountable. Now, it's tough in states like California and New York where the numbers are just terrible and the races are very expensive. Most parts in America, that's not the case. Even in rural Illinois, man, you can really hold politicians accountable because they're small numbers and you can be involved in small races. So we're always advocates for that. And, every state's different. I mean, Nebraska is very different than Texas. It's very different than Florida, and it's very different than Connecticut. So you got to use slightly different tactics, but we're always willing to help, and we're willing to help state level groups that want to hold politicians accountable. That's the key. So,
all right,
don't give in. The only part is don't compromise. Anybody who tells you politics is the art of compromise, run from them. They are an idiot. They're either contract lobbyists making too much money, selling you out, or they just bought into this lie that politicians tell. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers all the questions you have, John.
Yeah, I think it does. I want to know, what is the next thing for NAGR? Where are you guys focusing the most of your efforts right now? And after that, I will stop bugging you. I will let you go.
Well, we're going to be in Nebraska, South Carolina. We're certainly pushing in Florida, past constitutional carry. All three of those states. There's some states with some bad, gun control laws like red flag. We were one of the main opponents, certainly the main opponent in America on red flag. We've opposed it all along. We haven't, even when Donald Trump said he supported taking the nukes first and then due process later. I just made a joke that was only relevant to the FBI search. But when he endorsed red flag, we were loudly in opposition to that. And Indiana has a red flag law. We'd love to repeal that. We got constitutional carry this year, and thankfully we got it just in time for, little did we know, that Elijah Dickens was able to use the constitutional carry and frankly conduct a pretty great defensive operation for a young shooter. Man, he was top notch at 40 yards. We actually shot an Elijah Dickens match, a stage in our match over the weekend, and tried to set it up the same way he shot the mall shooter and interrupted a mass murderer. So we're proud of the fact that we put a lot of heat in Indiana over the years and got that accomplished. But there's quite a few other states that we think are on the block. I think you're in Pennsylvania. We think that we're going to get that sooner or later.
I hope so.
We'd love to work with you on that. But in terms of Congress, we hope we take the U.S. House this year. I think it's a heavy lift with in the Senate, but we think we take the U.S. House, or certainly we have a shot at it, and hopefully then we can at least stop some of the bad things. One of our big priorities, and we have a whole slew of legislation, is stopping the ATF and the NICS database, which is just a registry. It's just creating a massive registry of gun owners. It's being totally abused both by the states and the feds. The Fix NICS Act that John Cornyn passed was horrible.
Yes.
That's entering prohibited persons, people in the prohibited persons list by the millions now. I think the Dems have decided they don't actually need to ban guns because all they have to do is increase that prohibited persons list and so that 50 or 60 million people can't buy guns anymore. Well, you basically effect ban guns for all 60 million of those people.
That is a damn shame.
Yeah, those are the kind of things we're working on. Of course, I mentioned the Shush Act, which would turn suppressors into nothing. That's outrageous that's not just a safety issue for people's hearing. So those are some of the items.
I look forward to seeing how things go over the next couple of years for you guys. I would love to see some more victories. I would love to hear about more victories. You guys got to get better about bragging about what you guys are doing. Either that or we'll just have you back on here to brag about stuff. Maybe that's what we'll have to do. But I do appreciate you being on here. I want to encourage people to find you guys on social media. go to your website. It's right there, nationalgunrights.com. It's
.org
there.
and gunrights.org.
There you go.
You can, we have a pretty active YouTube channel. Look
Perfect.
up National Association for Gun Rights. I have a sub channel called Dudley's Range Rogues where I just shoot machine guns and blow things up. And if you come out here, we'll film it. We love to, we kind of love to do some fun things on there as well as talk politics. Sure. So, look us up on Facebook, Instagram. We're out there. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be fighting the fight. And if you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you.
Well, Dudley, I do appreciate you giving us your time and answering all these questions today. I hope people feel like we got some insight into what you guys are doing, and you're welcome back anytime. So thank you again. And as always, to the folks out there watching, listening, etc., thank you guys. We really do appreciate you, and we will see you very, very soon.